My wedding day should have been one of the happiest of my life, a celebration of love and new beginnings. Instead, it became a brutal battleground with my own family. I never imagined that simply refusing to change my wedding date for my sister's vacation would lead to them abandoning me, leaving a gaping hole where their support should have been. But the real shock, it wasn't just my wedding they skipped. They were utterly stunned when I returned the favor. I'm 30 and my fiancée Emma 29, and I have been together for 6 incredible years. When I proposed, it wasn't a surprise to anyone. Our family's new marriage was on the horizon, and everyone seemed genuinely happy for us. My parents offered congratulations. My younger sister Ava, 26, was all smiles and excitement, and my older brother Mark, 34, enthusiastically said he was looking forward to the big day. Everything felt perfect. Emma and I quickly settled on a wedding date. It wasn't just a random pick. It was the anniversary of the day we first met, a date that had always held a special magic for us. Getting married on it felt like destiny. We locked in the venue, started making deposits, and dove headfirst into planning. At first, my family was seemingly on board. My mom asked about colors, my dad joked about a legendary speech, and Ava and Mark even inquired about the location. There was no hint of trouble, not a single cloud on the horizon. Then, a few weeks later, my mom casually dropped a bomb. She mentioned the date might not work for everyone. Her words were vague at first, but Ava quickly filled in the blanks. She had a conflicting vacation. Mark chimed in about a company retreat. The excuses piled up, one after another, each making our wedding feel like an inconvenient afterthought. I tried to brush it off, convinced it was nothing serious, until Ava made her displeasure crystal clear. She explained that our wedding fell during the week of her annual girls' trip, a tradition she and her friends had nurtured for years. Her tone was dramatic, as if this was a life-or-death decision. "It's such bad timing," she whined. "I don't want to choose between my trip and your wedding." Emma and I were utterly baffled. Our date had been set for months. Ava's trip was just a vacation, something she and her friends could reschedule or plan around. It wasn't a work obligation, not a family emergency. It was a choice. I calmly told her, "Ava, you're absolutely invited, but we are not changing the date." That's when my mom swung into action, pushing hard for a compromise. Ava shouldn't have to miss something so important to her, she insisted. I shot back, "Mom, our wedding isn't just important to us, it's one of the biggest days of our lives." But instead of backing off, she doubled down, making me feel like I was the difficult one for simply holding my ground. Then Mark piled on. His company's big annual retreat, a crucial networking and team-building event he attended every year, fell on the same weekend. He didn't outright demand we move the date, but he made it clear he'd have a tough decision to make. It felt like my family was treating our wedding as an optional event, something they'd attend if it aligned perfectly with their convenience. My dad, ever the passive observer, mumbled, "A lot is going on that time of year," as if that somehow justified their blatant disregard. Emma, who had always gotten along well with my family, was stunned. She never expected this level of resistance over something as fundamental as a wedding date. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a new kind of clarity. "Has your family always been like this? Always choosing their own convenience over showing up for you?" Looking back, a pattern emerged. They always expected things to revolve around them. My mom returned with yet another compromise, suggesting we reschedule, framing it as if we were the inflexible ones, when they were the ones demanding we uproot our entire celebration for their whims. I'd had enough. "The date is final," I told them, my voice firm. "We are not rescheduling because Ava wants to sip cocktails on a beach, or because Mark has a work event. We gave everyone plenty of notice. You're welcome to attend if you want, but we will not change our plans to accommodate your schedules." Ava predictably did not take it well. She launched into a tirade about my selfishness, about how family should come first. I reminded her, "This is my wedding, not a random family dinner. If you truly wanted to be there, you could miss one vacation." The situation spiraled out of control. A cousin reached out, warning me that my family was actively slandering me, portraying me as unreasonable. Suddenly, I was the villain for expecting them to show up for my wedding. Some relatives took my side, but others acted like I was causing unnecessary drama. Emma, ever my rock, told me to ignore it, and she was right. We were happy, and this nonsense wasn't going to ruin our joy. I issued a final warning. The date was set, we weren't changing it. If they wanted to be there, great. If not, that was their choice, but I wasn't going to entertain the argument anymore. But instead of accepting it, Ava and my mom kept pushing. It was then I realized this wasn't about scheduling conflicts. This was about control. My family was used to me bending over backward, and they resented my newfound backbone. Fine. If they didn't want to come, that was on them. I wasn't about to beg them to be part of my wedding. Ava wouldn't let it go. The day after I made my stance clear, her texts started again. Not arguments, but endless guilt trips. She lamented how she'd looked forward to her trip for months, how she'd already paid, how unfair it was that she had to choose. Every few hours another message would pop up. She wasn't asking me to change the date anymore. She was acting like I had personally wronged her. Then my mom joined in. Her messages were subtle at first, casual remarks about family always coming first, or, "You'll understand when you have kids someday." But soon the act dropped. She thought I was being stubborn, deeply disappointed by my inflexibility. She even claimed other family members were upset. Vague accusations without names or specifics. Mark surprisingly went completely silent. No texts, no calls. He hadn't been as vocal as Ava, but his silence screamed where his loyalties lay. I sent him a few messages about wedding planning, carefully avoiding the drama, but got nothing back. He decided his work event mattered more. Finally, my dad spoke up. I desperately hoped he'd support me, but he hesitated, then said he and my mom were reconsidering attending. He tried to soften the blow, muttering about not wanting tension on our wedding day. But the message was chillingly clear. They didn't like that I wasn't giving in, and they were contemplating boycotting their own son's wedding over it. Emma's parents, on the other hand, were aghast. They'd watched this entire fiasco unfold, and when they heard my parents might skip, their polite tolerance vanished. They reassured us repeatedly that we weren't wrong, making it clear that no matter what my family did, they would be there, fully supporting us. At that point, Emma and I made a decision. We weren't going to wait around for my family's approval. The wedding was happening, and we were going to enjoy planning it, regardless of who decided to show up. We started finalizing details, booking vendors, making it a day we would be excited about. The family started splitting into factions. Some cousins, aunts, and uncles reached out, offering congratulations or pledging their attendance. But others, they were clearly siding with my parents and Ava. I heard through the grapevine that my mom and Ava had been complaining to everyone about how unfair I was being. In their version, I was the one making things difficult by refusing to compromise. Then came the Facebook post. My mom, never one to be direct, posted a long passive-aggressive rant about some people forgetting the meaning of family and selfish choices driving loved ones apart. The comments were just as bad. A chorus of vague but clearly agreeable relatives. Emma didn't even blink. "Don't respond," she advised, seeing it for exactly what it was. An attempt to drag me into more drama. She was right. Engaging would just turn into a giant mess. Instead of getting sucked in, we did what we had planned all along. We sent out the wedding invitations. My family received theirs, making it crystal clear they were still welcome. That's when Ava and Mark made it official. Both declined. No calls, no explanations, just their RSVPs with a firm no. My parents remained vague, neither declining nor confirming. They were still holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd change my mind. A cousin then gave me a heads up. My mom and Ava weren't just unhappy, they were subtly discouraging other family members from attending. They didn't demand a boycott, but their constant negativity was enough to make some relatives hesitant. That was it. My breaking point. I was done trying to please people who clearly didn't care about me. I wasn't going to beg my own family to show up. Emma and I sat down, looked at each other, and made a silent pact. We weren't wasting another second on them. The wedding was going to be amazing with or without them. And when the honeymoon came, we were leaving without telling them a thing. The wedding day dawned. I woke early, staring at the ceiling, letting it all sink in. Today was the day. After months of planning, after all the stress and drama, it was finally happening. Emma was already up, getting ready with her bridesmaids in another room. The house buzzed with excitement. Her family had been up since dawn, ensuring every detail was perfect. Then my phone buzzed. A text from a cousin. Just so you know, your parents, Ava and Mark, aren't coming. No explanation, no last-minute change of heart. Just confirmation of what I already expected. I put my phone down, got dressed. The suit fit perfectly. Everything was in place. Outside, Emma's parents made sure cars arrived on time. Guests were greeted. Music played softly. They hadn't just stepped up. They were treating this like their son was getting married. The ceremony was beautiful. The venue was packed, every seat filled except for the stark, empty ones reserved for my parents, Ava and Mark. I'd prepared myself, but seeing those vacant chairs was still a punch to the gut. Emma's dad walked her down the aisle, her mom already teary-eyed, her brother standing proudly beside her. My side? A few cousins, some aunts and uncles who hadn't bought into my mom's narrative, and my favorite aunt. That was the biggest surprise. I hadn't expected her. But just as the ceremony began, she slipped into a seat. Later, she pulled me aside, shaking her head. I don't care what your mom says. You're my nephew, and I wasn't going to miss this. Emma and I exchanged vows. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. Just like that, it was done. No more stress, no more waiting. The moment we kissed, the crowd erupted in cheers. Any thoughts about my absent family vanished in the noise of clapping, laughter, and excitement. Then came the reception. The moment we stepped inside, Emma's family enveloped us in love and attention. Toasts were made, glasses clinked, the food was perfect. Every time I turned around, one of Emma's relatives was making sure we were happy, checking in, making the day feel special. If my family thought they could make this wedding feel empty by not showing up, they failed spectacularly. Halfway through the night, someone handed me an envelope. It was from my parents. Inside was a check and a note. We hope you learn the value of family someday. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket without a word. The check went straight into my jacket unread. Emma caught on immediately. She squeezed my hand under the table, kept the conversation flowing as if nothing had happened. We danced, we laughed, we took photos. Nothing was going to ruin this night. Then the pictures and videos started spreading. Guests posted about how beautiful everything was. A few relatives even commented, wishing my parents had been there. Hours later, Ava made her feelings clear with a vague Instagram story. Some people don't value family traditions. It wasn't unexpected, but it was disappointing to see her double down instead of reflecting. No names, no direct call out, but she didn't have to. The timing said it all. The next morning I woke to another message. A voicemail from my mom. It was long. Too long. She wasn't yelling, but her voice had that tone, the one she used to ensure I knew I was in the wrong. She rambled about the family falling apart. How I had pushed them away, how Ava and Mark were heartbroken. She threw in phrases like, "After everything we've done for you," and "I never thought my own son would do this." Then my dad sent a text. "I regret how things turned out." When I asked if he had tried to convince Mom or Ava to reconsider, he dodged the question. His regret wasn't about what they had done, but about the consequences of his silence. Emma watched as I read it, then rolled her eyes. We had a perfect wedding. Don't let them rewrite it. She was right. We weren't about to let the guilt trips drag us back in. Before anyone else could interfere, we packed our bags and left for our honeymoon, without telling them where we were going. The honeymoon was perfect. No stress, no drama, just Emma and me, far away from everything. We'd picked a beautiful resort. White sand beaches, unlimited drinks, and the kind of peace that made it easy to forget the chaos leading up to the wedding. For the first few days our phones stayed off. No messages, no calls, no distractions. But drama, it turns out, doesn't take a vacation. One morning I turned my phone on and was immediately hit by a flood of missed calls, unread messages, and notifications from the family group chat. First I ignored them, but then Emma's phone lit up too. My mom, my sister, even Mark, all calling, all texting. Something had happened. I opened the group chat and it was pure chaos. My mom was in full meltdown mode, calling out the family members who had attended the wedding. According to her, they had betrayed the family by showing up to support Emma and me. She wasn't just upset, they were being called out by name, accused of enabling disrespect and choosing sides. Aunt Linda, the one who had surprised me by coming, was her first target. My mom had sent a long dramatic message about how loyalty doesn't mean much these days, and some people are too easily swayed. Then Ava jumped in to back her up, not even trying to hide her bitterness. She was personally offended that anyone had dared to celebrate my wedding instead of thinking about the bigger picture. As if her vacation was the bigger picture. One of my cousins finally had enough. "So let me get this straight," she posted. "You skipped your own son/brother's wedding over a vacation and a work event, and now you're mad at the people who actually showed up? Make it make sense." Ava ignored that and went straight to playing the victim. Minutes later, she posted a dramatic Instagram story. A black and white photo with some vague nonsense like, "Some people forget who's always been there for them, and loyalty isn't what it used to be." Meanwhile, Mark sent me a private message. He hadn't said much before, but now he admitted that he didn't think things would escalate like this. He tried to sound neutral but didn't know how, his excuse being, "I don't want to get in the middle of it." Too late for that. Then my mom made her next move. She switched tactics and went straight to Emma's phone. The message was long, guilt-trippy, and full of fake concern. According to her, I was tearing the family apart, and Emma needed to talk some sense into me before it was too late. Emma glanced at the message side and didn't hesitate before replying, "We're on our honeymoon. We're not entertaining this drama." Then she put her phone down and went back to drinking her cocktail. Back in the group chat, people were still arguing. While my mom and Ava fumed, more and more family members started pushing back. More pictures and videos from the wedding had been posted online, making it obvious how happy the day had been, even without my parents, Ava, and Mark. Then Aunt Linda finally snapped. "You're embarrassing yourselves. You made your choices, now deal with them." That's when my dad stepped in. Not publicly, of course. No, he sent me a quiet, half-hearted message. "I regret how things turned out." That was it. No real apology, no standing up to my mom or Ava. Just another useless regret with zero action behind it. By the way, if you're still with me, and this story has you hooked, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories are coming. Then Ava found out about the honeymoon. Apparently, she had assumed we were still at home, probably dealing with wedding cleanup or whatever else she thought we'd be doing. But when she realized we were already on a plane, sipping drinks on a beach without telling anyone, that set her off. The group chat blew up again. She ranted about how, "Wow, guess we really mean nothing to you. And, you couldn't even tell your own family where you were going." That was it for me. I sent one final message. "You all made your choices. I made mine. Enjoy your week." Then I muted the chat. Coming home after the honeymoon was like stepping into another world. While Emma and I had spent 2 weeks sipping cocktails on the beach, my family had spent that time spiraling. The second we landed and turned our phones back on, the notifications started rolling in. The first sign of trouble was my mom's Facebook meltdown. She had posted a long emotional rant about how she never imagined her own child would turn their back on family, and how some people let outsiders ruin what should have been unbreakable bonds. She didn't name me directly, but anyone who knew the situation could tell exactly who she was talking about. The comments were filled with distant relatives chiming in, some agreeing, others clearly uncomfortable but trying to stay neutral. Ava wasn't far behind. She followed up with a sad selfie captioned, "Some bonds aren't as strong as you think." Again, no names, no direct callouts, but the message was obvious. She wanted sympathy, and of course she got it. Her friends and a few family members flooded the comments with heart emojis and messages about how she deserved better. Then came the family division. A cousin reached out, letting me know that some relatives thought my parents and Ava were being unreasonable, while others simply wished things had played out differently. It wasn't an all-out war, but it was clear some people preferred avoiding conflict over acknowledging who was in the wrong. Apparently, to some, avoiding conflict was more important than the actual wedding itself. Then my dad showed up. I hadn't heard much from him since the wedding, aside from his usual neutral regrets. Seeing him outside our house felt out of place. He wasn't the kind of man to take decisive action, but here he was, as if suddenly realizing the damage had gone too far. He wanted to talk. Inside, he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Eventually, he admitted that he hadn't agreed with what my mom and Ava had done, but he felt pressured to stay quiet. He talked about how they had been furious in the weeks leading up to the wedding, How they had made it clear that if he tried to push back, there would be consequences for him too. Emma sat quietly listening, but I could already tell she wasn't buying it, and neither was I. At this point it was clear that my dad knew what was happening was wrong, but he had done nothing to stop it. Now, after everything had blown up, he wanted to play the helpless middleman. Emma didn't hold back. She reminded him that he let it happen. He stood by and watched while my mom and Ava spread lies, guilt-tripped family members, and boycotted their own son's wedding over something completely ridiculous. That's when I made my demand. If he really supported me, if he truly regretted how things had played out, then he needed to say it out loud. Publicly. To my mother and Ava. Not in some quiet private conversation. Not in a whisper that no one else would hear. He needed to stand up for me instead of just texting empty apologies. And just like that he backed down. He mumbled something about how it's complicated. And how he didn't want to make things worse. In other words, he was too afraid to take a stand. He was more comfortable being in the background watching it all happen than actually speaking up. That was all I needed to hear. After he left, Ava made her last move. She sent me a long text completely unhinged, about how I was selfish and how I had ruined the family's unity. She went on and on about how I had humiliated her, and how this is why no one respects you anymore. That was it. I was done. I blocked her. No more texts, no more passive-aggressive social media posts, no more of her nonsense. Gone. Not long after, Mark reached out. His message was simple. I should have done more. I'm sorry. He didn't excuse his silence, didn't try to justify it, just admitted he had failed to support me when he should have. At this point, I knew that some family members would never change. My mom and Ava were still completely convinced they had done nothing wrong. My dad was too much of a coward to challenge them. But Mark, he was starting to see it. Maybe not enough to stand up to them completely, but enough to realize he had been wrong. And that was enough for me to know that Emma and I were moving forward without them. Months passed after the wedding chaos, the social media meltdowns, and the failed guilt tripping. I assumed my family had finally accepted reality. I had moved on. Emma and I were happy, living our lives without the constant drama. Then, out of nowhere, the messages started. My mom sent a casual just checking in text, but when I didn't immediately respond, she escalated, reminding me that Ava's wedding was coming up, acting like I was the one who had to make amends despite everything they had done. Ava, who had been radio silent since I blocked her, suddenly unblocked me on social media. She didn't message, but she started liking old pictures, ones from years ago before everything fell apart. Emma noticed immediately. She didn't even need to ask. They want something, she said. And of course she was right. A few days later, one of my cousins let it slip. Ava was getting married. That was the real reason for the sudden friendliness. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She wasn't trying to fix things. She wanted me at her wedding. Then the invitation arrived. It wasn't personal. No message, no apology. Just a standard wedding invitation addressed to me and Emma. Emma looked at it, then back at me. So, do they expect us to just pretend nothing happened? Apparently, that was exactly what they expected. My mom's text became overly sweet. Suddenly, she was all about family sticking together and fresh starts. She conveniently avoided every part of the wedding drama, acting like this was just another normal family event. Then Mark called. He wasn't dramatic about it, but the message was clear. They expected me to make things right by showing up. According to him, Ava and my mom believed that this was the perfect opportunity for us to move past everything. Ava must have felt the pressure to actually acknowledge me, because she finally messaged me directly for the first time in months. She reached out, and of course it wasn't an apology. It was her playing the bigger person. She told me she was willing to forgive me if I showed up. That was all I needed to see. I sent one simple response. I thought you didn't care about inconvenient wedding dates? Then I declined the invitation. Mom immediately started calling. I ignored the first few. Then she left a voicemail full of the same guilt-tripping nonsense as before. I was tearing the family apart. I was being petty. I was hurting Ava on the most important day of her life. I didn't respond. Days later, I started hearing from relatives. Word had spread. Ava was furious. She was telling people that I was immature and bitter for skipping her wedding. Apparently, She was shocked that I would hold a grudge over something so small. Emma just laughed when she heard that. Then she had a brilliant idea. Let's book a trip that weekend. And we did. A luxury resort, the works. We made sure to let a few cousins know. Not in a petty way, just casually in conversation. The news reached Ava. That was when the calls and messages stopped. Ava and my mom must have realized that nothing they said was going to change my mind. No more fake nice texts, no more desperate attempts to manipulate me into going. Then my dad reached out. A simple message. I regret how things turned out. Same thing as before. The same useless regrets without any real action. I didn't respond. At that point I had all the closure I needed. Ava's wedding came and went, and I didn't hear a word about it. No last minute pleas, no final guilt trips. It was like they had finally accepted that I wasn't going to budge. Emma and I spent the weekend on a beach, completely unbothered. And that was the moment I realized we were finally free. Ava's wedding week arrived, and Emma and I couldn't have been more relaxed. We treated the weekend like any other, carefree and completely unbothered by the family drama that had consumed the last few months. Ava had done her best to manipulate the situation, but we had moved on. The weekend of the wedding came and went, and we spent it in total peace. We didn't get caught up in the stress of it all. I didn't even check my phone for any messages from my family, but it didn't take long for the fallout to hit. One of my cousins called me up, barely able to contain his laughter. Apparently, Ava had been spinning the missing brother narrative to the rest of the family. She was telling anyone who would listen that I had refused to support my own sister on her big day. My absence was somehow painted as the biggest betrayal, and she made it sound like I was the one ruining the family. It wasn't just Ava. A few days later, I opened my Facebook to see my mother's post. It was one of those vague, dramatic statuses clearly directed at me. She lamented how some people just can't put the past behind them, and how family should come before petty grudges. It was a classic move trying to guilt-trip me into submission. Mark texted me a last-minute plea, saying he wished things had been different, and hoped I would reconsider attending Ava's wedding. For once he acknowledged that our family had handled things poorly, but even then he stopped short of calling out their behavior directly. Emma, ever the voice of reason, reminded me that none of them cared about my wedding. None of them respected my boundaries or supported me through the mess with Ava. She was right. I owed them nothing. Just when I thought things might calm down, Ava sent me a text, playing the bigger person. She said, "It would mean a lot if you came, but I understand if you're still holding a grudge." It was a fake olive branch, but I saw right through it. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I shot back. "You weren't willing to change your plans for my wedding, but I should drop everything for yours?" That didn't go over well. She flipped immediately. Within minutes, she accused me of being petty and obsessed with the past. I wasn't surprised. It was the same old Ava, always trying to flip the script when things didn't go her way. My mom wasn't done either. A few hours later she called, sounding tearful and desperate. She claimed the family was falling apart because of me. How if I didn't make things right? Things would never be the same. I wasn't buying it. I had heard this manipulation too many times. I told her bluntly, "Ava and the rest of you made your choices and now I'm making mine." That was the last time I answered her calls. As for the wedding itself, I heard bits and pieces from the extended family. There was minor gossip about tension during the event, how Ava kept mentioning my absence and how unfair it was. But honestly, I didn't care. Ava had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Then came Mark's message. It was a few days later, after the wedding had wrapped up. He told me the wedding had been a disaster because of all the drama. The tension was palpable, and people were whispering behind the scenes about how everything had been ruined by family feuds. But Ava had a final petty move. She posted an Instagram update, just as I expected. The caption was all about being grateful for the real family who showed up, and how she was cutting out toxic people from her life. The irony was lost on no one. She had cut me off for simply setting boundaries, but now she was pretending to be the picture of grace. Then, of course, my dad came through with a private confession. He admitted that Ava and Mom had taken things too far, but he still refused to take a public stand. He said he regretted how things turned out, but was too afraid to speak up. His cowardice was infuriating. He had been silent throughout the entire thing, and now he was acting like he was caught in the middle. At this point I was done. Emma and I weren't going to waste another second on this circus. We didn't need the drama in our lives. Instead, we booked ourselves a fancy dinner to celebrate the freedom we had found. Ava's wedding was over, and we were the ones who had come out on top. We didn't care about the chaos, we didn't care about the passive-aggressive posts. What mattered was that we were happy, and nothing they did could take that away. We toasted to our peace, to a life without the toxicity, to cutting off people who only brought drama and manipulation into our lives, and most importantly, to the future we were building without the weight of their negativity dragging us down. The family had lost its hold on us. It's been just over a year since Ava's wedding, and if there was ever any doubt about the choice I made to cut ties with my family, it's long gone. Ava's divorce was finalized last week, and the way it played out was almost poetic. Less than 2 years after the wedding she'd made such a spectacle of, Ava's marriage completely collapsed. I don't know all the details, but I've heard enough through the grapevine to know it was just a matter of time. She rushed into that marriage just like she rushed into everything else, and the cracks started showing almost immediately. But here's the kicker. My mom, true to form, tried to spin the whole thing. Instead of letting Ava own the failure, she took to Facebook to make it all about how Ava had been misled by a terrible husband who took advantage of her good heart. She posted a whole message about how devastated she was for Ava, how unfair it all was, and how this was a lesson in trusting people. Of course, not a word about how Ava's actions contributed to the mess. My mom couldn't even bring herself to acknowledge her part in all of this. Then came Mark. He sent me a message late one night that was simple but powerful. It was the kind of message I'd been waiting for, but didn't expect. It read, "You were right. Mom and Ava are toxic." That was it. No fluff, no excuses, just the blunt truth. I wasn't even angry. Mark had spent years walking the line between us and them, trying to keep the peace, but now he'd seen it too, and I could tell that he was finally fed up with all of it. I didn't reply right away. I knew Mark needed time to process just like I did. A few days later, my mom hit me with her apology. She sent me a long-winded email claiming she was sorry for how things had turned out, and how hard this whole situation had been for her. But as usual, it wasn't really an apology. It was more about how she was struggling with the fallout, how hard it was to lose her son, and how much she wished we could all just get along. She made sure to mention how much pain she'd been in over the entire situation, which, no surprise, didn't include acknowledging how much she contributed to the mess. Then the real kicker came. A cousin, who I still had some semblance of a relationship with, reached out and warned me about a family reunion my mom was planning. Apparently, Mom was trying to set up a surprise gathering to force me into making amends. She told everyone else that she was hoping for a miracle, and that maybe, just maybe, this would bring the family back together. It was clear that she was hoping to put me on the spot and force me into being the bigger person. Emma had no patience for this, and I didn't blame her. She put her foot down hard and said, "Our child doesn't need to be around that negativity." No way. I agreed with her completely. We had come so far in building a peaceful life, and I wasn't going to let my mom or Ava drag us back into their toxic drama. There was no way in hell I was walking into some reunion designed to make me the villain. So I did what I had to do. I officially blocked my mom, Ava, and anyone else in the family who still chose to take their side. It wasn't just on social media. I blocked them from everything, texts, emails, everything. I wasn't going to play their games anymore. Then my dad sent me a final text. It was a lot like his other messages, full of regret but still not willing to stand by me publicly. He said, "I wish things had turned out differently, but I understand why you're done." That was it. A simple "I get it." But it felt more like a cop-out. He didn't apologize for the way he let my mom and Ava treat me, and he never took a public stand. He still wanted the peace, but at this point I couldn't settle for that. Ava, of course, wasn't done. She sent me a direct message on Instagram asking if we could talk. She told me that she was ready to move on and wanted to find a way for us to be family again. But by this point I was so over it. I didn't even open the message. I didn't need another round of the same old manipulation. She'd burned her bridges. The smear campaign started soon after. I started hearing from friends that Ava was telling people I had cut off the family for no reason. It wasn't even surprising at this point. She'd been painting me as the villain for so long that I wasn't shocked to hear she was still doing it behind my back. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and anyone who was worth having in my life knew it too. Eventually, Mom and Ava stopped trying to reach out. It wasn't because they'd had some grand epiphany or were suddenly filled with regret. It was because they realized I wasn't going to cave. I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their world of manipulation and guilt. They stopped sending messages, stopped pretending to care, and honestly, that was the moment I truly felt free. As for Emma and me, we were doing better than ever. Our baby arrived, and it was everything we'd hoped for. We were surrounded by friends who truly cared about us, people who respected our boundaries and supported us without question. Our little one was surrounded by love, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. Mark, too, started drifting further away from Ava and Mom over time. He came to realize what I had known all along. The only way forward was without them. I'm not sure if he'll ever publicly stand up to them, but I know he sees what I've seen. Looking back, cutting them off was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I've built a new life, a better life, and I couldn't be more thankful for the people who have supported me along the way. As for the rest of the family, they can keep doing what they're doing, but as far as I'm concerned, I've won. I chose peace. I chose Emma. And I chose my child. And that's the best victory I could have asked for. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose your peace over toxic family expectations? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear from you.